Welcome, real estate rock and rollers, to Real Estate Rockstars ROCKNROLLA. And this is where we make the move for you to take full charge of your career. And, look, over the years, you might have found yourself in almost like a servant to the profession. One of the things I like to share with people early on in their career is that you kind of give your life over to it. And it is all consuming. Let's face it, real estate business is one that just sort of engrosses your entire life. And then you see a lot of people talking about this quest, this urge to have balance between work, their career, I guess they're talking about, and their social life. And to my mind, the business that we've chosen is one that you meld it in to a career lifestyle. And the moment you accept that and do that and then take control, well, things start to get off on the right foot. Last week, we spoke about those 4 questions in terms of evaluating your performance. And those 4 questions, just a quick reiteration of those. I said, first and foremost, what do you love doing? What are the tasks that you just love so much you would do them pretty much for nothing, or you're not really conscious of the dollars? I don't think we'd go that far as to say that we'd actually work in the business for nothing whatsoever, but you're not conscious of the money that you're earning because you do enjoy those tasks. And we hope that top of that list would be listing presentations. To my mind, that is the number one indicator that you found yourself in the right profession, and that's what it's all about. Because let's face it, the sale is made at the listing presentation, selling your company and you personally and your professional capacity on a value proposition to push it forward. We also talked about negotiating deals. I felt that this is something you should love if you're going to be a peak performance professional, that you actually love putting deals together. You relish the idea of a buyer and a vendor being several or tens of thousands of dollars apart, but one wanting to buy and the other wanting to sell. And also the idea of securing commission. This will come up again today. I just am fascinated as to how agents don't understand this, that they fight so hard to get the opportunity, fight even harder to win the listing. And the moment that you are creating a concession, or the moment that you are giving away something, to the field in terms of the percentage on commission, you're actually lowering your dollar of productive activity and lowering your earnings almost straight away. This just does make no sense to me, particularly inside of consignment selling. And we'll spend a lot of time on this going forward, because on top of the fact that you should be looking to list and eventually sell more properties, you should be looking also to mitigate any loss in income sustained through, whether it be commission percentages or giving away marketing, giving away advertising costs, anything like that. To my mind, you're a salesperson, and a salesperson should know how to represent value behind that. And people, property sellers should be ready to part with those amounts of money. Then we asked, what do you do under sufferance? I'll come back to that, but effectively, what are those tasks that you perform reluctantly because it appears no one else does them as well as you do, or whether you assume that one of the reasons that people list their properties with you is because of these tasks. So you don't necessarily enjoy doing them, but the reason that you do them is you just feel like nobody does it better than you, and that's why a lot of these sellers choose you. Then we got to the important column, and the one I want to spend a lot of time addressing today. What do you loathe? What are the tasks you wish to eliminate, since you detest them, find them exhausting, distractive, and completely discouraging? As I like to say, you'd rather stick pins in your eyes than do them. Now, as a real estate rock and roller, as somebody that's looking to be fulfill their capacity in some ways exceed the capacity of what would be considered normal inside the industry, you have to pay attention to this particular area, because whenever you're working, functionally speaking, in an area that you don't enjoy, you'd rather stick pins in your eyes than do it, as we say, loathe it, you're going to find yourself engaging in a whole range of things that don't make a lot of sense. Now, you know, when I look at those things, I say, well, how do we remove these tasks, not the responsibility that might be related to them? Because I mean, top of my list, and I hope that some of you are the same, in and around what do you loathe would be prospecting, any form of traditional prospecting. Not because, I mean, I've got to admit this, you know, if I find an active property seller, I love talking to them, even though that's in prospecting mode. And I couldn't say that I don't enjoy, you know, the art of jumping on board and talking, prospecting to what you would call warm to hot prospects, where you're going to get a lot of positive response. But in truth, it's not challenging. It does become monotonous fairly quickly. And, you know, although it's fun, it's not the highest and best use of my time, although it's fun at times. But when all is said and done, it's something that you have to do, because we can't let go of it, because prospect flow is the very thing we crave. Now, indeed, many of you have the luxury of having lots of support around you. You might have a dedicated sales associate that's working directly with you. And if you're listening to this, this is where you make the morph, where you make the transition, and you've got to let go. You've got to be able to delegate confidently around the initiative that you hope that that sales associate that is working directly with you has. So it is that I say, you know, that's the first thing. The second thing, once we get shot of those things that we loathe, understanding that they have to be positioned somewhere else. Because one of the things you do not let go of, even though you're going to let go of the tasks, you can't let go of the accountability around those tasks if they are largely, if those tasks create the other productive tasks that you need to have on board. And of course, I'm just alluding almost directly to prospecting. Understand this, prospecting for the most part, and this is very important that you understand this at the rock and roller level, is prospecting is not skill-based. It's largely process-driven. And as long as you understand strategically what you're trying to do, and then you understand fundamentally in a processed disposition what you're trying to achieve, it's readily outsourceable in the sense that you don't have to be directly involved in this. You just have to oversee it, have the correct assistance around it, and Bob's your uncle. So, and then the third thing we want to avoid in moving into this elimination, and the title of this particular session, session 3, is eliminating the PTBB. PTBB being an acronym for pretending to be busy. I know this is harsh for me to say this to you, but I've got to tell you, one of the things I've found in this business is, and even in life in general, is the only person that we can't have on, the only person we can't bullshit, the only person we can't lie to is ourselves. Yet so often I see this is almost in the first instance, we bullshit ourselves more so than anything else. So I say very, very clearly that what you need to do is stop bullshitting yourself, stop pretending to be busy, stop paying lip service to certain aspects of prospecting, and look for what really matters and take full control of it and create permanent prospect flow pretty much forever. So the PTBB comes in when we start saying, you know, for example, you know, that I'm prospecting in the first instance for leads. or on populating databases. I've got to tell you, at this level of sales, if you are truly aspiring to be a real estate great, or you're aspiring just to fulfill your capacity and earn a fantastic living with a minimal amount of input and a great lifestyle, you just have to start recognizing where the bullshit sits inside this industry. In prospecting, and I had this said to me again today, someone was suggesting to me that the real oomph or the real impact as it sits around prospecting is founded in the real impact around prospecting is founded. So someone said to me, social media. The number of salespeople I've seen buried in social media, distracted by social media for a minimum return is astounding. The number of people that I've seen buried in what I would have to call low priority prospecting protocols, again, is astounding. Reliant upon advertisements, reliant upon stuff where there's minimal input but loads of distraction. This is PTBB. This is not being open and sincere with yourself. Let's face it. The reality is that listings beget listings. And if you understand that the primary consideration for any property seller in any area that you covet is basically physical or geographical presence in that marketplace, not least of which, or most importantly, I should say, is for sale signs in that area. And there's that challenge that you hear me talk about at the sales associate level, all the way through the sales professional level. And here I am again talking about it. But it's at this point, at this level, where you have to accept and take full control of this. If you manufacture, if you build significant presence in your marketplace, that of a player where you are, whether perceptively or in reality, showing, a 30% market share or presence to that equivalent, and you maintain it, you'll always fall onto the shopping list. So these databases stuff, this is just a fallacy. Anyone that's driving salespeople to collect data or collate data and put this into a database is pretty much having themselves on. Yes, I'm not saying it's not going to work. I'm not saying that building up this data and coochie-cooing people over the years is not going to have listings coming in, but you're never going to get to the level, never going to get to the level where you are pretty much automating prospecting and getting, up toward double figures, which we will be talking about in this series, and how you seriously tackle the onslaught of moving into the space of 10 or more listings per month. You're never going to get there doing this by database management, coochie-cooing people, running trails, all that sort of stuff. Even if you're pushing a sales associate to that, because you're actually teaching the sales associate the wrong way to go about it. Manufacturing, building up and maintaining presence has long-lasting effects. I say this in practicality to people all the time. There's no big deal if I meet someone who owns a property in the area, they're not selling right now, and I just kind of drop them like a hot potato. I hope I get the data and I hope that stuff's going out, but I don't stress about that one, because what I know is if I build the presence in the area, should that person become active, just by virtue of the fact that I have significant presence in that marketplace, they're going to come to me anyway. Stop worrying about long-term coochie-cooing of people on databases. Stop referring to it as data. A database that contains names and numbers of people you'd like to do business with but are yet to is not a database. That is a contact list, a glorified phone book. Yep. A database is the collation of people you have transacted with on the premise that you are maintaining contact with them because you want to continue to do business with them going forward. Just let go of this. If you build the presence, they will come. If people see your presence in the area, they see the activity, they will come. This is how it works. So it is that you have to let go of that. So it is that you have to move into the space, especially if you have a sales associate working with you, of making sure that they have a significant understanding of the tasks that they have to perform in order to maintain that presence, and don't you get involved in it. Yeah. So the next line about letting go is you have to let go and you have to empower. And the question you have to use most often, I'm not saying that from time to time you don't direct a person what to do, and certainly we do this through, you know, the PC3M program. If you've got an sales associate, those of you that are still involved at the sales trainer mentor level will know that we spend a lot of time, especially in traction, in making sure those protocols are adhered to. And what do we focus on? We focus on the leveraging the moment you have listings, the moment you're past foothold, the leveraging at the front end. So we're doing things, you know, like LA Woman, which is the just listed. We're doing things like 2View websites, which is at the front end. We're sending the welcome home invitations out. All of this occurring in sequential order. So, for example, the LA Woman goes out before the signboard goes up. This creates the impact. Yes, it lowers the response because you're only going to get calls from sellers, but let's face it, there's only so many sellers in that area. We leverage off the middle as well. So what are we doing? We're collating the sales inquiry, putting that into the sales inquiry log, and that SEL inquiry is followed up diligently at about the 4-week mark. Again, if you're running a sales associate in tandem with you, they need to be working at that 4-week thing mark back, and they need to be going rock solid hard on listings that you've already got and listings that you've sold. And then you only need to be involved to the degree where they locate someone for you. But if the location's not occurring, and it's a simple analogy, if I'm looking at an inquiry that's 4 weeks old and I see through the welcome homes, I see through a couple of other things that, you know, maybe there was 25 inquiries, I know that there's at least 5 listings in and amongst that inquiry. So if we're not getting that, I might have to, for a brief moment, get involved, knowing full well that the conversion is going to be high as long as that stuff's being collated. And I'm not doing the PTBB, I'm doing a priority correctly to maintain prospect flow. At the back end, you know, of listings, have you, and we all pay lip service to this, if your fair income around the prospecting component of real estate, the front end, there's 4 of them, yeah? Prospect, listing presentations, managing price expectation, and of course, making sales. You know, if you're fair income about that, yeah, then you've got to be looking at how do you leverage at the back end off the successes that you've had. Now, a lot of us pay attention about this. We get super excited and we talk about the accolade that we're going to get, or the recommendations and the testimonial photographs and what we're going to do with them. But it just gets forgotten fairly quickly, especially if there's another listing in the wings, or a listing presentation to go to, or a deal to get across the line, or it's the end of the quarter and you're thinking about being paid. But this is the priority. This is the area where a day in reconnaissance focused upon those things is a week saved in battle. And I say this over and over again to the top end real estate rock stars, rock and roller. You know, if you're fair income about it, don't think that this is a complex domain. It's simple. It's not easy, because it's not easy to maintain the simplistic things repetitively over and over and over and over again. But if you love the idea of being in listing presentations, then you have to create an environment that's putting you in that space daily, every working day. And again, I cannot begin to tell you how important it is to ensure that you have a listing presentation set up for the next working day that you're going to go into play. This is eliminating the PTBB. This is prioritizing things as they need to be. If you clean this up properly, especially as it relates to prospecting, and you get this tightened, especially if you've got a sales associate in tandem, then you are setting a platform to boost your productivity beyond what you might have thought possible. I can tell you, I used to think that doing sort of a dozen listings, receiving or winning a dozen listings a month was pretty good. I can tell you that it's quite plausible to run anything from 15 to 20. Not that you would want to do that, but I'm just saying it is plausible. So you've got to look at it as though that's easy, yeah, and I was kind of running at half speed. You've got to stop allowing your mind to think that this is a difficult business. It's a business that works around the prioritization of tasks, about letting go of the superfluous stuff, letting go of the things that you're not good at or you loathe doing, and putting all of your energy on the things that are dollar productive related activities, that are income generating, and make the whole thing work. Then with your listing presentation, if you love doing this, you've got to get into the exact science around it. And you've also got to create an environment that makes it almost as though when you go out there, it's not yours to try to win, rather it's yours to lose. In fact, you've done such a good job inside of your product marketing, especially even with prospecting. I didn't mention this just a second ago, because this has come up in the last few weeks and not a lot of salespeople realize this. The important facet around prospecting is the understanding that the prospecting protocol continues past the listing presentation. Prospecting stays in play all the way up until a listing has been signed by that active property seller. And so it is. And again, for years, the major component, the major problem, if you like, was that salespeople were very slow to follow sellers up. That's not the case anymore. In fact, it's tipped the other way. They follow them, they overdo it in the follow-up, particularly because it's competitive and there's been a scarcity of listings. But in overdoing it, they're also, when they're calling, not really offering anything of any further value or anything around your professional capacity or anything to do with price. They're just badgering the seller timing-wise to get the property on the market so they can get the property sold. Understand this, and Rockstars get this. Yep. People do not sell, for money. They do not sell for purely around timing, your timing. Now, I know there's exceptions to this, but I'm just talking general. In the vast majority of cases, people sell to satisfy a motive. And the agent that understands that and makes all of their product shift, all of their communication, all of their professional capacity, if it's directed and it's toward the motive, if it's motive centric, then you can only prosper going forward. And this is where agents just lose sight of it. Like you've got to, and I talk about this in the passive contact. You need to, at the top end, understand how to balance the direct contact where you're talking to people with passive contact, which from their point of view is almost the same, but it alleviates the badgering, it alleviates the harassment, it alleviates the they just won't leave me alone and all they want to do is sell it. You need to demonstrate professionalism, and that word professionalism is directly related to care, and show that care in and around the motive. They sense that you are hell-bent on getting them to where they want to be. They'll not only give you the business, there'll be an alleviation around price, and alleviation around fees and everything else associated with it. Inside the listing presentation, as I just said, you need to actually have one where when you turn up, it's yours to lose. So what we need to do at the Rockstar level is start thinking very, very seriously about how we cover as much as we possibly can of what would be done and said in the presentation before we even get there. Now, one of the great vehicles for this is, of course, the open for inspection. And I ask you to sit here right now and have a close look at your open for inspection. Are you using it for not much more than introducing buyers and making sales? Now, to me, the buyers, as crazy as this is going to sound to you, is probably the last consideration that I make in and around the open for inspection. I'm more, because I believe that if you list it, they will come. I've said this 1,000 times. We don't sell houses or property, people buy them. So despite the way it looks, despite what's going on, if they fall for it, they will buy the property. I've rarely had someone say to me, I refuse to buy this property because of the way the agency is presenting it at the open for inspection. But I have heard of sellers refusing to list a property because of how an open for inspection or how they were handled in the capacity of maybe being a buyer, or sorry, in the capacity of turning up. So to my mind, you have to be totally paranoid about how your open for inspection is received by incumbent sellers. And I say that you need to treat the open for inspection, the welcome home as we call it, there's the giveaway straight away, but you need to treat it like it's a virtual listing presentation. I believe this is your shop front. If this is not indicative and fully representative of your product, then you need to pay close attention to the open for inspection. Look at it from a seller's point of view. What would you be expecting at that open for inspection? Would you be expecting the company to be quite attentive around the people that turned up? Would you expect them to give a certain amounts of information? Would you expect that they were on time? Would you expect to see showcasing what's to be done and said? Now, to my mind, it's not about the conversations that you have with the buyers. It's about the conversations that you have with the sellers. It's about making sellers researching the market feeling quite comfortable. But fundamentally, and we'll go through this, and many of you heard me talk about this before, I say it's about reliability and consistency in product. In the same way that the McDonald's Big Mac is the most successful burger in the world, but it's by far from being the best burger in the world, we have to look at the open for inspection and say, how do we make it consistent and reliable as the Big Mac is, so that people can buy or purchase that with confidence? The two things that our industry is totally devoid of are consistency and reliability. So when we get into the presentation, you want to make sure that anything that they may have seen prior to you getting to that presentation is consistent with what you're going to do and say, and that you can create a platform that shows value beyond reproach, so much so that if they do inquire on fee, it's merely to satisfy themselves that you are asking for an amount of money that is consistent with the value that you've got on offer. Far too often, agents spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to overcome objections rather than setting up a platform or a presentation that is objectionless. So it is that we're just going to talk about how we let go of a lot of these tasks that you loathe, that we reappropriate those that have a direct correlation to dollar productive activity, fundamentally prospecting, how we put those in place so that you create some consistency and reliability, and we push for prospect flow. If you have any questions about what I've talked about here today, and I know that I'm talking around it, as we progress, these things will be way, 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 way more succinct around practicalities, what you do and say, but you need to understand why we're putting this language in place and why we're making this whole thing work around the sales process. You can reach me at Mark, M-A-R-K, at realestaterockstar.com.au, or feel free to telephone me at +61 410 592 165. And I hope to catch you next week as we strive as real estate professionals to become inside of the industry, real estate rock stars, the true rock and roller.